This is the Buzzy Kerbox podcast. Do you have a name for your podcast?
Not yet. Couple more, maybe I'll think of one.
I'm here to facilitate and bounce things off of, and we're stoked to have you here, courtesy of a New Earth project at the Pipeline Studios. Pipeline is right out back. It's not breaking yet. Today, what are we going to focus on, Buzz?
Today, I'd like to talk about the life and legacy of Dick Brewer, one of the best shapers that ever lived.
When did you first hear the name Dick Brewer?
Well, I grew up in Kailua, and I was coming out to surf the North Shore, and a lot of the best guys out here were riding Dick Brewer boards. And so it's like, I want to surf good on the North Shore. I want to get a Dick Brewer. So
how old were you?
Teens, high school, teens.
Who were those people that were riding them?
You know, Sam Hawk, Al Chapman.
Hackman?
Hackman, a lot of the good guys. Lopez worked with Dick, but then made his own boards too. So
you said he was born in
1936 in Minnesota.
Wow. 1936, and he paddled to get to Hawaii. That's how he got here.
I'm not sure about that one. We may need a fact checker on that one, but I'm pretty sure he moved to California. He started surfing in like 52. Started shaping in 58. 1960 he moved to the North Shore and started shaping here on the North Shore.
Oh my gosh. I got to break out an old map. North Shore in 1960. I mean, there's still one road and one stoplight on this North Shore.
Yeah, the North Shore was the country. It was they call it the country for a reason.
Was Kailua more developed back then?
More developed than out here, yeah. This was the wild, wild west, yeah.
You guys had like stoplights and stuff?
Yeah, stoplights and if
motor-driven vehicles or horse
if you called the police, they would show up in minutes, not hours.
I think we've reverted back to the old ways on those phone calls. Guys like Buzzy Trent were riding elephant guns in the early 60s.
Yeah, so when Brewer moved here, guys were just started riding Waimea. So he was one of the best shapers for the Waimea elephant guns to ride, 25-foot surf at Waimea. Buzzy Trent was one of his riders, and I had that picture of Dick and Buzzy Trent in the shaping room, like looking at the board, and it was like, oh my God, that was just such a classic moment. Buzzy Trent and these Brewer guns for Waimea, that just, stuck in my brain.
What was his energy like? Was he intimidating? Or was he accommodating?
Very accommodating, very low-key, very just, really nice guy. From the 70s, we've been lifelong friends.
So you get your first board from him at how old? 18, 19?
Yeah, probably 18 or 19. And
sponsorship wasn't really a thing back then. Did you get it for free or did you pay for the materials?
I was just up-and-comer, so I'd pay for the shape and the materials, pay for the whole thing.
Do you remember how much that cost?
I don't.
I'm 55. How old are you?
I'm 66.
I remember my first blank, Tim Bissell in La Jolla. I had to go to Mitch's and buy the blank, and it was $35 for a blank. What was a blank when you were 18 years old?
It was probably $30.
Because you were over here in Hawaii, so it had to be shipped.
It might have been 50. And I think Brewer shaped it for me for 50, gave me a deal. I think he normally charged 100 or something and did it for me for 50.
Tell me you still have the board.
I don't have the early ones. Just didn't. They were just boards. Had them and moved on.
I know you're not thinking that way at 18 years old. I recently did a bunch of interviews about the history of surfing, and we went to the Surf History Museum and Culture Center in San Clemente, and they have all these great old boards on display. And the guy, our friend Barry, who was taking us around, said, "You know why these boards are here, right?" And I said, "No." He goes, "Because they were bad boards. Good boards don't last."
Yeah.
They get ridden into the ground or they break.
Yep.
Bad boards get sold, handed away, stuck in the closet, and never ridden. So kind of like all the great boards don't exist. You know?
A lot of the boards, broke in half or got dinged up or just,
All right, so tell me about the construction of those early boards. Was that single layer 6-ounce glass, or do you even know?
Yeah, I think
double layer.
It was, depending on how strong you want it. So I was going to South Africa, so I came out, met with Dick.
How old were you?
18.
You were going to South Africa when you were 18 from Hawaii.
Yeah.
It's a 7-day trip.
Oh, it was a 2-day trip. It was a long haul. But I competed as an amateur, and then I surfed in the Smirnoff Pro. I made it to the semifinals, so then I couldn't be in any more amateur events. So I was kind of in limbo.
Oh, you won like $100, so they just kicked you out of the amateur
Yeah,
ranks?
now you're a pro. You won $100. You're pro. You can't surf amateur. So the only way that I could compete was to go to South Africa, where they had pro events with the trials. So Randy Rarick was putting together the tour, and I went to Dick Brewer to get a couple boards.
This is the invention of pro surfing you're talking about. This isn't just like I made the NSSA national team, we had coaches. I mean, you might as well have been like Raiders of the Lost Ark going on an adventure to Machu Picchu to find a diamond stone.
I mean, I didn't know at the time. It was just, that's where I've got to go to compete, and I want to compete. I love competition, and I want to compete, so that's what I got to do. So I got to get some boards. I'm leaving in 2 months, so I better get to Brewers now. You know, it's like he's got to order a blank and the time and get a glass, so it was a long process.
But you would have only known about South Africa or Jeffreys Bay from magazines or stories. There's no internet. You can't look at the swell charts.
Yeah.
I mean,
just read it in the magazines. And then Randy Rarick was putting the tour together and said, this are the dates, this is when we're going, this is the event. So
you went with a crew?
Yeah.
Who was the crew that went?
The first year, I think it was, I'm not sure if Michael Ho went the first year. I think he went the second year. It might have been Bobby Owens and Dennis Pang. And
Dennis wasn't shaping yet.
I don't believe he was shaping yet. He was still competing. Yeah.
Wow, that's an insane trip. Okay, so you get the board. You're driving up from Kailua to the North Shore. Surfboards took, what, a day to make back then? UV cure resin?
Yeah, right.
I mean, just to get a hold of the shaper was like a week to find
you
this
call,
guy.
you leave a message because there's no cell phone. So
Leave
you call,
a message?
Yeah, that's right. There's no
messages.
message. You call, he's not there. You got to keep calling till you finally reach him.
Then
you set up a time and come out and meet.
So you get in your horse and buggy, come out from Kailua to the North Shore, and you got to find Dick Brewer.
Yeah.
Is there any substances being exchanged here or just cash?
Well, we would typically get together. I'd finally find him at the shaping room. He'd be a little bit late or whatever, he'd roll up. And I'd heard that if you had a joint, it would really help get him rolling. So I'd bring out a nice joint. We'd sit there and smoke it and get into the shaping room. And I'd tell him, I said, Dick, I'm going to South Africa. I want to ride this wave, Jeffreys Bay. I think I need like about a 6.6 for that. What do you think? And so he draws it out and then stands the board up in the corner. We look at it. Well, maybe the tail's a little too narrow. Let's make it a little wider. Redo it. And he'd cut it out and then stand it up again. And we'd look at it and go, that looks good. And he'd get the planer out and start shaping, and that's when I'd go back out surfing.
Do you have any idea the dimensions of the thickness, the width of the nose, the tail, where the wide point was, anything like that?
Well, I think they were 20 inches wide, 3 inches thick. Wide point was 2 inches up from center.
Gosh, you're speaking my language. I want that board now.
13-inch tail.
Single fin,
13.5-inch nose, yeah.
Did you used to choose your fin? Did you ever have like a dolphin fin? Or what was your fin, your go-to? And was it glassed on?
No, we had a box in those early ones, and so you put in a couple different fins. But I had like one fin. I didn't have a big selection to choose from.
That's kind of interesting, isn't it? Back then when they were single fins, they were removable. So then the FCS and the removable fins of today with futures and stuff, we act like that's an innovation, but single fins were removable.
Well, actually, some of them were glassed on. Typically, they were glassed on.
If you're going to surf locally, yeah.
A box was a specialty item because I was going to travel with this board. I didn't want a glass-on fin, so then get a box put in, a single fin box.
Kids today don't understand what it means to ask around the beach if anyone has a book of matches
Yeah.
because you lost your screw and you need to
Shim
wedge
it
that
in there,
fin
yeah,
into the box.
yeah.
Wow. So how'd the board work? And what was the colors of the board first? Sorry.
That was a all blue board.
Oh my gosh.
All blue. Yeah,
You're making me cry. Could you imagine seeing that board brand new right now?
Yeah.
I mean, in your memory of the shape and the outline, and I know it was the 70s and boards have moved on, was it a cool looking board?
Oh yeah, it looked so cool.
As a Grom, were you like over the moon?
Yeah, I just wanted to put that board in my bed, and it was just, oh my, this board looks so good. got the little Brewer sticker. It was blue with a lighter blue top.
Oh.
And so, yeah, I came out, actually drove out from the North Shore to pick it up the day I was leaving that night. I had to, like, rush to Glasser, finally got it done, got back. And back then, there was no Pro Lights. It's like, now, how am I going to...
Yeah, how did you pack it? I think people use sleeping bags, right?
Well, my dad had a door company, and we boxed the doors. So my dad took me to the airport. We stopped by the door company, went in there, and found a box that fit, and boxed it up, stuck it in a cardboard box.
That's still the most genius way to pack a board, like a circle and a square. I mean, it's the best. Because boards get damaged all the time, even in board bags. So you get the board, you're on your way on this huge mission. Do you even remember the airports or how long it took you to get there?
Oh, it was a huge mission. We flew through Chicago, through Amsterdam. I was like, 2 days. It was a long haul to get to South Africa.
People smoked on planes back then.
Yep. Yeah, the smoking, there was a smoking section and then one seat. Okay, if you're, behind 27, then that's non-smoking, but it's like the smoke didn't know any boundaries. So yeah, it was gnarly.
So you guys finally get there as kind of a group. Tell me about the session at J-Bay, first session there on that board.
Well, first we went to Durban. I surfed in the contest. I think I got third at the Gunston 500.
That's pretty cool. How much prize money?
$500.
You could buy anything you wanted.
I could pay my hotel bill and had food.
Who won that contest if you got third?
The same guy had won it like the year before and the year before that, Sean Thompson.
Thompson,
he was hard to beat at his home break there.
Yeah, I don't think you were just surfing against Sean. I think you were surfing against Sean and 5 judges.
Yeah, it was tough. There was controversy, but I felt good to make it to the final, go through the trials, make it to the final. And Gavin Rudolph from South Africa was second. I was third, and Simon Anderson was fourth. So it was a good result, had some money. And then the main thing for me, I was excited to go surf Jeffreys Bay because that looked like I'd seen a lot of pictures of that, and that's where I wanted to go.
And that wasn't a contest. That was just to go surf.
That was just a free surfing. There's no contest there at that time.
Do you got $500 in your pocket that you could convert at a bank there, or are you putting that in a check and waiting till you get home?
It was 500 rand, so it was.
Wait, it was 500 rand.
Rand, yeah.
Was the rand 1-to-1 back then?
I think it was a little more. So it was a little more than the conversion was good.
I think it's 14-to-1 U.S. to the rand now. It's sad.
Wow.
Pretty stoked.
Hidden in my pocket, yeah.
Yeah, you hide it. Did you guys drive down to J-Bay?
We drove. It was
through the Transky.
We had through the Transky. It was Brian Amona and
so you brought
other
security.
guys. We had a little gang from Hawaii and rented a van, Volkswagen van, and we disconnected the speedometer because they wanted you to pay for every click, which is kilometer every half mile.
The odometer.
The odometer. We'd reach in there and unhook that. So we. Because we're going a lot of miles, so we didn't want to pay for that.
That's incredible.
So we drove, had an incredible journey, got to Jeffreys Bay, and it was just firing.
Wetsuits, huh?
Wetsuits.
Beaver tails, or did you have pro wetsuits by that time?
We had pretty good wetsuits, but I remember, and there's a picture, O'Neill showed up, and they had wetsuits for everybody with a tuxedo, printed on the front of it. These white tuxes. Fun. So there's a shot of, all of us in front of a hut in South Africa from that year. It's pretty amazing.
That's some forward thinking.
Yeah.
So, okay, the Magic Brewer, Baby Blue, did you name it?
It was just, it's just my brewer. It's just my...
So imagine going to a surf event with one board.
Yeah.
You didn't have, these guys go with 14 surfboards.
Yeah.
2 board bags stuffed with 5 each, and then they're manager, wife, filmer carrying another bag. Yeah. You had one board.
One board.
Okay, so it worked pretty darn good. You got third in a contest.
Yeah.
You didn't even get to ride it before you left.
No, I picked it up on the way to the airport, basically. So
how does it do at J-Bay?
So it is riding amazing at Jeffreys Bay. I was just having some of the rides of my life, just so long, just making it from the outside through super tubes, and it was just amazing. And then in the afternoon, I caught this great wave, and a South African guy dropped in on me. And so I just went to kick out, and as I kicked out, he kicked out too. So I smashed right into him and put a huge ding in the outside rail of my board. And so, I went in, I was just bummed, and it was back in Jeffrey's town, which was not much of a town. There was one wimpy bar, which is like a little restaurant in the hotel. That was it. And I was just walking around with my board at 8 o'clock at night in the dark going, how the waves are going to be 8 feet tomorrow, and I don't have a board.
You don't even know if there's resin in that town.
Yeah,
at
I
that
didn't
point.
even know. And so I'm just walking around with my head down, and this guy pulls up and go, hey, tells me that he was the guy that dropped in, and he was sorry, and he's going to take my board and get it fixed by the morning. And I'm like, my head went, are you sure? I was like, really? You're going to take it and get it fixed? I'm at the hotel. He goes, yeah, it'll be outside your room. And so I gave him the board, and he drove off, and I went back to the hotel, went to sleep, and I'm going, what are the chances I wake up and come out of the hotel and that board's there?
Or that you ever see it again.
Yeah, I mean, I might not even see it again. The guy could have just scammed me. I didn't know. But I came out early in the morning, and there's my board, and it had a big, huge, like white foam insert where we had to cut out all the ding and put that board in, and there it was. And I went back, and Jeffries was just on fire for another couple of days, and I had my favorite brewer.
Wow, that's so cool. Your first brewer and one of the best boards ever. And did you ever get that guy's name?
No.
That's pretty cool. I don't think they do that anymore when they ding your board at Bay.
Yeah, or anywhere.
Or anywhere in the world. I think I had to ding repair someone's board when I was a kid. At Windansea, I dung a guy's board and I had to fix it. And
Yeah.
I don't know how to do ding repair.
Yeah.
I think I made it worse. I think I literally melted the whole board around it because I did the hot coat too. I don't know what I'm doing with this. So you come home from that trip and
From
you're
that
hooked.
trip, and I'm hooked, but suddenly I've got to go back, and I did well enough that I was going to start to get some sponsors. So there was a new surf shop in Kailua called Local Motion, and they decided they wanted to sponsor me. They were going to give me 2 boards, 2 T-shirts, and a bar of wax. And sorry, we can't help you with the airfare.
What more could you possibly
But
need
that
than
was
2 boards and 2 shirts?
That was a stoker. I'm like, I'm sponsored, yeah.
Wow.
And so I didn't ride Brewers for a while. I had to ride the Shapers for Locomotion, which was Pat Rawson, which was not much of a downgrade.
No.
Pat was
Did
an
Pat
awesome
learn
shaper.
anything from Brewer? you
Pat
think?
learned a lot from Dick. Yeah, they'd worked together, and Pat had learned a lot of secret little things from Brewer that Brewer was willing to share with him.
Well, those Rawsons must have been pretty good boards, huh?
Yeah.
Do you have any of those? The originals?
I do. I have a couple.
Really?
Yeah, I have a couple stash. Yeah,
Wow.
but not as many as I'd like to. I had quite a few of those boards.
Were they tri-fins already or no?
No, those were still singles. We're still single.
Wow. Did you see guys still riding Brewers in bigger waves on the North Shore?
Yeah, they were still the board to have on the North Shore, Sunset, Waimea, Pipeline. A lot of guys rode the Brewers. In 1966, they had the World Contest in San Diego, and a lot of the guys were riding these long boards. But then David Nuiva, is my understanding, jumped on a fish board and was maneuverable and was really like doing shortboard maneuvering that nobody had ever seen.
Changed the world.
And that sort of changed in a lot of ways. And then some of the other Aussies were cutting their boards down to be more maneuverable, like this, fish board. And also Reno saw one of these fish boards and got one, and I think took it home and was trying to make his own version of that. And
So Reno was shaping a little bit too?
yeah, I believe he worked with Brewer, but also he shaped his own. Definitely was shaping his own stuff.
And MR had worked with Brewer to learn how to shape. MR had single fin Brewers.
Well, I think that MR saw this, fish board that Reno had made, and he went to Dick Brewer and said, teach me how to shape, and let's make like a twin fin design. So Brewer taught MR a lot of shaping techniques and worked with the twin fin. Then MR went back home and came up with twin fins, shaped them and practiced until I believe he busted it out in 78 or 79. He came out with the twin fin and
He
won
did okay on those in contests, yeah?
4 world titles in a row. So he all of a sudden he's on a board different than anybody else is riding, and he wins 4 world titles consecutively doing stuff that nobody else can touch.
How long did it take you to get on twin fin after MR started on the?
About the second year, I was like, well, how, nobody could beat him. So then I came back and I got a twin fin, and a lot of guys were getting twin fins. Sean got a twin fin. Dane was a town and country guy. He got a twin fin. So it's like,
Did Michael Ho ever get a twin fin?
I don't think Michael ever rode a twin fin, not to my knowledge. I think he stuck with the single fins.
Yeah, he didn't like them. I remember that.
So the twin fin came along, and Simon Anderson didn't like the twin fins, so he came up with the thruster design to compete with the twin fin, and the thruster became the state-of-the-art board.
What did you think of your first thruster?
Oh, I liked it right off the bat, yeah. I mean, I did good on twin fins, but the thruster was just, they just worked amazing.
Did you win Surfabout on a twin fin?
I won the Surfabout on a twin fin, yeah.
Wow. Did they think you were Australian or something?
No, they knew I was a foreigner, and they didn't make it easy on me. That was tough.
That's pretty funny that the finals now of the WSL currently is 2 out of 3 format, and you had to do 2 out of 3 format to win that.
Yep. That was one of the only contests back then that they had the 2 out of 3 format.
And how much money did you win?
20 grand.
Do you still have it? I'm kidding.
No, but Slater still remembers that I won the Surfabout and how much I won.
Really?
Yeah. It's like he's like a statistician or whatever.
He is a statistician for sure. Have you been to the surf ranch?
I have not.
That's lame.
Yeah.
Come on, Kelly. So when did you get back into riding a Brewer? I know that you and some friends were inventing a way to get into waves that nobody had ever done before. The size of the waves and the method in tow surfing.
After, being on the world tour for 7 years, I was back on the North Shore and surfing, and the crowds at all the spots were just thick. I mean, it's like being in a ski resort, and there's just hundreds of people coming down the runs, and it's really hard to focus. And at that time, Laird, Derek Donor, and I were windsurfing a lot at backyards and seeing all these waves, and we thought, well, maybe, we'll start towing onto these waves with my Zodiac. So in 91, 92, we started experimenting with the tow-in, riding our big guns. And
so first of all, a Zodiac is a boat with an outboard motor. Okay, so nothing can go wrong.
With the propeller, yes.
Yeah. So you cannot drop someone in or stay in front of the wave with a Zodiac. You got to let them go and then just kind of see you later,
Edge
alligator.
out, get off the back, yeah.
Yeah. So where was the first place you guys tried it?
At backyards, yeah.
And what was the boards you were riding? Regular boards?
We were riding our big Brewer guns and 9.6s.
So you still had some Brewer guns for the big waves
Yeah,
in the arsenal.
yeah.
Was Derek Dorner? Did he have some Brewers?
Derek had Brewers. Derek was all Brewer guy, and actually my first gun, I had a 9.6 Rawson, and there's a picture of the three of us on the beach. This is just that moment in time when we were on the Zodiacs, and Derek had his Brewer, I had a Pat Rawson, and Laird had a board his dad, Billy Hamilton, made him, a wood board. And those are the 3 boards that we were basically starting to tow on.
But these are not tow boards as we know them. These are guns.
These are guns.
So how quick did you guys realize, hey, we're already getting this planing surface speed. We could get a smaller board that's heavier. How'd you figure it out?
Well, not all the waves we were towing on were giant. Some of them were smaller. So originally we put foot straps on regular boards, and one of Laird had a 7.2 Jerry board, Jerry Lopez board, and we put foot straps on that. And I had a 7.8 something, and we put foot straps on that. And we were experimenting, trying to ride regular surfboards with foot straps, and they just didn't hold the speed. It wasn't right. And so Derek took Laird over to Brewer's shaping room, and I'm not sure if Laird had a Brewer at that point or not, but they said, "Look, we're towing," and Brewer's like, "Yeah, I've seen you guys out there. You guys need shorter boards, and you need some different equipment and that." So Laird said, "Yeah, I want you to make me something special to ride these waves and when we're towing in." So they gave him the input of what they wanted, and Brewer said, "Come back in an hour."
In an hour.
Yeah. Come
And
back
you're
in
like,
an hour.
hey, when I ordered this board for J-Bay, it was come find me in a month.
Yeah.
Now we're talking an
Hour,
hour?
come back in an hour, and they went back in an hour, and there was a 7.4, 16-inch wide, full concave board that was made specially for tow surfing.
16 inches wide.
It was almost more like a water ski. A slalom ski has that full concave, and Brewer talked about making, boards that were more like water skis, and this one was more like a water ski. And got it glassed and foot strapped.
Heavy? Was it heavy?
It wasn't that heavy. We didn't at that point. We didn't know it had to be that heavy yet. And but
Did it make a difference when you rode it?
We went and rode that thing at Hokipa and some other spots. We were just towing in, experimenting, not on giant waves, but the board you let go of the rope and it held the speed and it turned. It was like, oh my God, this is game changer. So we all got 7.4 Brewer tow boards like that and riding them, and then each year it was like, well, we could go 7.2, we could go a little shorter, 7. Oh my God, you're down on a 7-footer. But as the years evolved and the boards got shorter and shorter, now the standard is like a 5.10 or a 6.0 even for 30-foot waves.
But heavy.
Well, the weight came later because a lot of the days we were riding Piahi, which is almost always windy. And so when you're on those little boards and the wind coming down the face, it was hectic getting through the bump. So I'm not sure if it was Kalama who it was first decided to start putting the weights on, and we were like routing channels in the bottom and filling it with BBs just to make it heavier. You had to spread the weight. You couldn't put it all in one place or it didn't work. You had to spread the weight out. So then we started making boards like 20 pounds.
Wow. That's interesting. Kalama, he's still he can't stop experimenting. He's foils every day, as you know.
Yeah.
And every single day it's a different board. And he's got hand paddles. He's got
fin. He was really involved in the fin design and making different different fin foils and shapes and metal fins and all these different. He always creative.
So who was that first strapped crew? The Three Musketeers are you, Derek, and Laird.
Yeah, and then we went over to Maui. Derek dropped Laird and I and Mike Waltz off, and we had my Zodiac and Laird's Wave Runner that he got from Endless Summer 3, and we drove from Hawaii Kai to Maui on a Kona storm, 30-knot Kona storm.
Is that recommended? Is that safe?
I wouldn't try that. For you kids at home, I wouldn't try it. But
so
yeah,
you took a Zodiac from Oahu to Maui.
Yeah. Well, we were too cheap. We didn't have trailers, and we wanted to get the equipment over there. So the best way was to drive it there.
You even loaded them up with boards and stuff?
No, we sent the boards,
gas.
just extra gas.
Okay.
Yeah. And I remember driving over there, and it was like
3-hour tour.
We're going downwind through the Molokai Channel. I mean, it's like unbelievable, not even getting wet. And then Laird would pull up on the jet ski and spray us. So the only time I got wet was when Laird had to get us wet. Yeah, we pulled in the backside of Molokai, and there was wind coming through these valleys, and we were trying to gas, and all of a sudden it's like, hide the gas, whoa. Put the cap back on, wait, and then the wind would go down, from 60 miles back to 0. And we finally made it to Maui.
So now you had the gear on Maui.
Now
who was the crew that wanted in on the action?
So over there, we'd been hanging with Mike Waltz, Mark Angulo, Kalama, Brett Lickle, and Laird and I and Derek were pretty much, and Pete Cabrina. That was pretty much the early strap crew.
How much later did strapped foiling come in?
A few years later, yeah, that was
definitely the safest thing in the history of surfing.
Yeah.
Strapped in boots with a metal foil in the early days.
Sharper than a Ginzu knife.
Gosh. Were you able to keep up with Brewer in recent years?
Later, after my competitive years from the tour, they were having Masters events. So I went back to Dick and had him make me a 7.4. We were having an event in Puerto Escondido. And Brewer made me the 7.4 and a 6.8 or something I took, and I actually won the Masters on my 7.4 Brewer.
So you're a Masters world champion.
Yeah.
Which board did you ride to win that?
7'4", and I've got a picture of me on that board, and I would see him around. He had moved to Kauai, so we didn't see him that often. But when him and Sherry would come to the North Shore, we'd have him over for dinner and barbecues, and still kept up with them and remained friends with them for till the end.
One of the most influential shapers in the history of surfing, would you say?
Yes, I would say absolutely undisputed. There's no shaper that's contributed more to the evolution of surfing than Dick.
What am I looking at here?
That is Laird and I splitting the peak, both riding our Brewers.
Where at?
That's Piahi.
It's not a small day.
Nope.
Do you remember this board? Mellow Yellow?
Yeah, that's the one that I rode in my one eddy. I was in one eddy, and the only board I wanted under me was a Dick Brewer.
Were you pretty happy the first time you got on a real wave runner?
Oh, yeah. I was like, oh, this is way better.
The first wave runners weren't even outrunning waves, were they?
No, they barely.
Did you ever get mowed down?
Yeah. Victor Lopez was my towing partner for a while, and he picked me up after a wipeout, and the whitewater just picked us off. You couldn't outrun it. We just took me off the sled, sent me cartwheeling in liquid space, and he stayed on a little bit longer till it ripped him off, and the ski boards, everything went up the rocks. And
at what spot?
At Jaws.
It's really mellow out there when that happens. Huh?
Yeah.
Soft and gentle.
Yeah.
Like a massage. It's a huge day. Is that Waimea?
That is Waimea. It's Brock Little at a very famous wave. He paddled into, caught, and made it halfway down the face. Riding those giant waves, it's so hard to catch them and make them. The difficulty was just getting down and surviving a wave like that. And, with towing, we were able to now ride big waves and really do high performance on it. So when Dick made us the little tow board, it changed big wave surfing. Now, not survival and try to get down the face of it, but now we could take off deep, fade, slide, tear it apart, and get barreled on giant waves.
Why are you wearing a leash at Jaws?
Because if you lose your board, it goes on the rocks.
Oh, because you didn't have wave runners to chase you. That was still Zodiac tow?
No, we probably had it. Do I have a leash on? I don't recall.
Look at your front foot. It's front foot Buzzy leash.
Oh, yes.
What are you thinking? You must have the strongest left ankle in the history of surfing.
Well, I had like 2 tow boards, and if they go on the rocks, they're destroyed. So it's like,
So I used to do this series on the tour called Tour Notes, which was like videos behind the scenes of life on tour. And everyone was telling me, you got to just come to Piahi and stand on the beach and watch people try and get out and try and get in. They have these brand new $2,500 surfboards, and they just get destroyed trying to make it through that shore break. That shore break is no joke.
Gnarly, yeah.
You're wearing a leash at Piahi.
Yep.
It's not advised by the new crew. This one looks heavy. That looks like a more modern type of tow board.
Yeah, I probably didn't have a leash on that. That's on a Brewer, and that was a little bit later. That was just maybe 2 years ago, and that was my 6.0 Brewer right there. That was I've had hundreds of tow waves on that board.
You still have that board?
Yeah.
This is so funny. It looks like you're being towed by like Kirk Ader on his inflatable raft.
Yeah.
Where and when? Place this one.
That's early. That's probably 92. Backyards. Laird and Derek in the boat. Boards tied on the bow. Me towing in on looks like Laird's balsa board. That was at Brewer's Paddle Out. Alan Sarlo, my wife and I were helping with the tent and all the stuff, and I put 2 of my boards in the tree there. And then as everybody showed up, they put all their Brewer boards in the tree and made a kind of a tribute to Dick and all the boards he shaped for all the hundreds of people. I think Dick Brewer was, to me, he was a great friend, and he was the most influential shaper in the history of surfboard design. And if you didn't ride a Brewer, you probably rode a board that was shaped by somebody that was influenced by Brewer. So, he was amazing, and he'll be missed.